Good morning. It's Tuesday. Actually, by the time you see this, it'll be Tuesday evening. I'm just sitting here. Sadie's over here hunting. Can you see? So sitting here, this is what I've been doing the last couple mornings, just letting her hunt and just kind of sitting here and having my coffee and sitting on a rock and enjoying nature, kind of a little meditative almost. And I've had a lot going on this week, so I'm sitting here trying to decide, do I want to try to do a As I See It Tuesday video, even though I said I probably wouldn't this week. I've seen a lot of comments, a lot of you are expecting one, and then I'm thinking, am I going to be able to do a Thursday video? So I decided I'm not going to be able to do a Thursday video because like I said, I have a lot going on this week. But what I'm going to do, since I'm just sitting here thinking about it anyway, I'm going to answer the top 3 questions I got, kind of contrary questions, opposing opinions to my monument video. So I'm going to answer the 3 most kind of opposing opinions, or just kind of like what about isms from my last video. So stay tuned, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to answer some questions.
Gonna do it for you. Got to find your own.
Hi friendlies, my name is Carolyn and welcome to my life living in an RV. So this is my new series on Tuesdays called As I See It. And I originally said it was kind of political, but I realized it's not really. It's more historical than political. It's more historical, kind of current events. And like I said in the videos announcing it in the intro to last week's video, what I'm really doing is taking a look at current events through the lens of history. I don't think that we can analyze what's going on today without understanding our history. And think about that. Do you think that your past affects who you are today, good or bad, indifferent, right? I mean, I don't think any of us these days can say, no, what happened to me in the past has nothing to do with who I am today. Whether you've worked through your past or not, I think we can all agree that it affects who we are today. Well, society and culture are the same. It's just a bigger entity. You know, culture evolves, societies evolve in a collective, very much like individuals evolve. And we can't understand who we are today without first understanding, accepting our past. As I said in the video, and in case you missed the monument video, you're going to want to take a look at that, because I'm going to answer some of the questions that I got from that. But we can't, I think anybody who's ever done any work on themselves, working with a therapist or a spiritual guidance or whatever you have done to work on yourself, we have to, number one, admit our past, right? I mean, I lived in denial for many years about my past, and it just caused me to want to self-destruct, right? So none of us can move forward until, number one, we accept our past, right? Or until we are able to look at it honestly, and then accept it, and then work through it. The same is true in society. If we are still denying who we are as a culture, as a society, we're never going to be able to move forward. And that's, I think, the perspective that I bring to my thoughts and feelings and analysis of where we are today as a country, and hopefully also in these videos. We cannot move forward until we are honest about our past. And I think that's why history is so important. And so, okay, I hadn't planned on this being one of the questions, but, you know, question number 1, why do you keep dredging up the history? Why do you keep bringing this up? It doesn't do anybody any good. And I hear that a lot, and I absolutely 100% emphatically disagree for all the reasons that I just stated. We cannot move forward as individuals, and we certainly can't move forward as a collective, as a society, until we address our past. And being in denial about our past, and like I explained in the last video, not only, it's not, in many ways it's not our fault, our denial about our past. Many of us were not even aware, myself included. I learned a lot from that video. We are not aware of how much people who are in power control our history, and control the narrative, and control what we read and what we learn in school. And so it is really important for us to dig in, dive in, dig as deep as we can until we get to the truth. And then, and only then, can we move forward, as long as we're willing to accept that truth and say, okay, because we can't heal as a society. We can't evolve as a society until we all start from a place of truth. Right? I don't agree that not talking about stuff. I've never, ever, I can't believe anybody who watches my channel even thinks that not talking about stuff is a solution for anybody, much less me. I mean, I talk about everything. You've seen me talk about just about everything on this channel. So no, I absolutely do not agree that that talking about it is just causing trouble. That's I'm sorry, but I think that that's ridiculous. Talking about things in a healthy, respectful, analytical way. You know, I remember, I'm going to share a personal story with you. I remember one time early in my 20s when I was really kind of starting to uncover some of the truths about my past. And I had suggested, I was still drinking at the time, my whole family are drinkers, and I suggested that my family get together. I said, let's just get drunk and hash it all out. That's not how you move forward. You know, I mean, that's not healthy analyzing. That's not healthy discussion. That would have been, you know, and luckily one person said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. So it has to be healthy. It has to be conscious. It has to be from a mutually respectful place, but also a place of mutually wanting to get to the truth and wanting to heal. And I don't think that's where we are right now. We seem to have some people who are really digging their heels in the sand saying, no, this is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. And la, 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 la. I don't want to hear anything else, right? And I'm not going to analyze those people right now, maybe in a future video, but right now that's not what I'm going to analyze. But so yeah, question number one, why do you keep bringing stuff up? It's not helping anybody. I disagree. The second pushback I got, and I hear this a lot about, mostly it seems about like white supremacy and white privilege issues and things like that I have done videos about. And I did a video about white privilege. I think I'm going to republish that because it's getting a lot of traction. So I think I might shoot an intro. So if you see that, just know that it's a republish. But if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link up here. So the second thing is blacks own slaves too. Okay. Yeah. And Africans, you know, were selling them their own people. Okay. Yes, that's true. But do either one of those points make what happened in the United States and the lasting effects of that? Do those two facts change that at all? No. Just because other countries had slavery, and yes, slavery has been going on throughout history. And I am sure that every culture that has had slavery has had to deal with the repercussions of that slavery. Is it Romans? I don't know. Lots of different peoples throughout history have been enslaved. And maybe they all have not been on race, but they've been on class, right? Poor people have been enslaved. And you can't, and America had like 250 years from the early 1600s, and I was researching this last night, from like 1619, I think they said the first African slave was brought over. And by the way, there were Africans in the New World before, I don't know if they said before European settlers, but before slavery. There were African explorers. I might do a video about that. You know what? I'll try to find it and put it in the description of this video. There were African explorers on this continent before they were enslaved. Something about from like Florida to Texas or something. And there was, gosh, I didn't mean to shoot this video, so I don't have everything all ready. This is why I'm not doing the Black Lives Matter video, because it takes a lot of shooting, a lot of editing, and a lot of research to make sure I get everything right. This one is kind of sort of really as I see it, off the cuff, answering the questions. But I'll see if I can find that, and I'll put a link in the video in the description below. I think it was a New York. No, I found a new source, and I can't remember it. I'll put it below. A new news source that got really high remarks on neutrality. I'll put that below too. So anyway, every society that has ever had slavery, I'm sure they had repercussions for decades, if not centuries, from that slavery and the oppressed people who were enslaved. Whether they were enslaved by class or religion or race, it is going to have lasting repercussions on both the oppressed and the oppressors. And that is what I'm talking about. So it's kind of like saying, well, black people own slaves. Okay, what, 0.01% of slave owners were black? And again, we have to look at the bigger picture. Sure, a few black people might have owned slaves because that is what the culture at the time said, that and I'm sure, imagine a black person during that, especially, I don't know about in the South, probably in the North, but that would be a status symbol. I made it, look at me, I made it. And who knows what they felt about it, but it was a common practice during that time. It's what people did. Yeah, there were abolitionist groups, but there were other people who were just like, yeah, that's just the way, that's just what it is. It's a status symbol to own another person. I would hope that the black people who owned other black people were maybe nicer to their slaves than some of the white people were, but I don't know. But again, yeah, okay, 0.1%, and I'm making that number up. I'm sure it's a very minuscule number. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure a very small percentage of black people owned other black people. And yes, there were people on the African continent selling their own to, Western people for enslaving. Absolutely. But that doesn't erase, that doesn't negate the experience in the United States of white people owning black people. It doesn't make white supremacy any less true. You're always going to have a few opportunists, and the people on the African continent selling their own people, shame on them. They were horrible, rotten, evil human beings, in my opinion. They were opportunists. They cared more about money than they cared about life. But that doesn't change the white supremacy and the owning of, what was it, 4 million African Americans in the new colony in the United States. It doesn't change that. So I don't accept that as an argument against white supremacy and the repercussions 100 years later of slavery in the United States. Birds. Ooh, a beautiful bird. So does that make sense? And I hope those of you who use that as an argument against slavery will understand that it's not mutually exclusive. Just because Africans sold their own does not negate white supremacy in the United States. One of my new hashtags is think it through. Before, maybe think these things through. So, okay, Africans were selling their own. There were a few business people, Africans selling their own. Okay, so they sold their slaves, or they sold their captured people to the New World, and North Americans, talk about that in another video, people of the New World enslaved them. So, okay, does that mean then that there was no white supremacy? No, it doesn't. So that was question number 2. And question number 3, and this is a tough one, is, George Washington owned slaves, and all the founding fathers, and there are statues all over the country and monuments all over the country of George Washington, and some of them are getting torn down because they owned slaves. So should they be torn down too? That's a tough question, and I honestly don't know how I feel about that. Again, it was part of the culture. It's part of our history. George Washington and the founding fathers created our country. They aren't famous for risking their lives to preserve the culture of owning other people, but they still own slaves, which is a horrible, ugly, dark, ugly part of our history. So I don't know. That's the thing about a lot of these issues that I talk about in my videos, dating back 3 years to white privilege and, the inauguration a couple years ago when I made that video. These are very complex issues, and there really is no simple answer. But we're not going to find answers if we don't talk about it. We're not going to find answers if we don't listen to one another. We're not going to find answers if we whitewash and lie and deny our history. These are the things, and it's at a tipping point now. I was just talking to a friend the other day. I think that we really are hopefully at a tipping point with all of this. And it's like a second, maybe civil rights revolution. I don't know. And that maybe things are really coming to a head with people being quarantined from COVID and all of the, what did I read? 1,144 Black men murdered by police since 2013. And it was an article, it was a Vox, VOX, and I didn't fact check that. So fact check that further. But you know, with numbers like that of Black people getting innocent until proven guilty, right? But innocent, unarmed Black people getting gunned down by police officers, people are outraged. People are outraged by that. And so I think that what we're seeing now with the marches, I think there's been marches every day since, was it George Floyd? And I mean, and so we're really, I hope, at a tipping point, you know, which means that things are going to start to improve, that maybe people are finally starting to listen. I think the video of the officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck really woke a lot of people up, just like a lot of the images of fire hoses and violence by police and National Guard against protesters during the civil rights and the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Remember that video? I went to Selma. So right now the video about white privilege is getting a lot of play. But remember my video when I went to Selma, Alabama? Check out that video again. I did a whole video about the history of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which needs to be changed, by the way. He was, I think, KKK. Isn't it interesting? So, yeah, a bridge in which one of the biggest civil rights marches in history took place for voting rights for Blacks is named after a former KKK. So to deny white supremacy is alive in this country is to just be in denial. And so these are really tough questions. And these are things that we all need to learn or be able to have conversations about. But when one section of one group, actually several groups, and I know Native Americans, I will do videos about Native Americans. I mean, actually, I'm going to talk a lot about Native Americans in the video. I'm going to talk about peaceful, violent protests, history of violence and violent protests in this country. So Native Americans, I have not forgotten about you. There have been so many wrongs done against non-white European descent people in the name of progress or whatever in this country. So these are really complex issues. There is no easy answer, but we can't find answers if we don't talk about it. So that goes back to number one. Unless we talk about these things, we're not going to find answers. And when certain populations within our culture, within our society, are denied, are ignored, are told to shut up, are told to stop playing the race card, are told you are not allowed to kneel in protest during a song, even though thousands of your brothers and sisters are getting gunned down. Nope, you can't kneel during the national anthem. We have to start listening to people. We have to start understanding and listening. It's a song, it's a flag, it's a piece of stone. And I'm kind of going to start getting into my video here and my thoughts about the peaceful protest. It seems to me that some people care more about things than lives. And I don't understand that. It's a monument. Sure, it symbolizes something, but when it comes down to it, it's a piece of stone. Where's the outrage over people dying? Where's the outrage over more Blacks getting incarcerated for the same crimes than white people? Where's that outrage? So when Black lives truly matter as much as every single life, then maybe we wouldn't have to resort to violently tearing down monuments. The thing is, people, and this brings me to my final question. I believe that the monuments need to go, but not violence, not through violence. They don't need to do, what's the word I'm looking for? Destruction of property. You know, they don't need to do it that way. They should do it the right way. Guess what? They've tried. For decades, there have been groups petitioning governments all across the country to remove these offensive, lie-filled symbols of hate, and they're still here. And I said this in the last video, violence is the last tool of those who don't feel heard. Do you think that people just woke up after, George Floyd and said, okay, we're going to start tearing down monuments just because we don't think they should be here anymore? No, this has been bubbling over for decades. People have, and I just saw a documentary about a group that was going around the country. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, it was such a good documentary. They were the devil worshiper, the Church of Devil Worshippers or something. And they actually, this wasn't about Confederate monuments, it was about religious monuments on public properties. And they said, fine, religious freedom, I want my monument of Satan worship right next to your Christian Ten Commandments monument. And you have to let me, because your reasoning for putting this monument on public properties of the Ten Commandments is freedom of religion. Well, I have a Church of Satan, so you need to put mine. And you know what happened? They started taking down the monuments of the Ten Commandments. But it took a lot, and they're making very slow progress. The same is true of these Confederate monuments. If people had listened, really listened to the people who were trying to say this history is a lie, this is offensive to Black Americans and white Americans who know who have bothered to listen and research and know that it's an insult to America, not just Black Americans. It's an insult to America to still revere statues of people who were willing to die to enslave other people. It's an insult to all of us. And there have been movements to try to get these statues removed, and nobody listened. Nobody listened. So all of you who say, yeah, I think they should be taken down, but not violently. I don't believe in violence. What's the word I'm looking for when you wreck other people's property? Anyway, what's that word? I'll put it here while I'm editing. For the people who say I don't believe in violence, were you out there supporting the people who were petitioning local governments to get these monuments taken down? This is, as I see it, you can't be outraged about a result of something that you never participated in or supported before. Okay? You can't be outraged about a result of something that you ignored, denied, whitewashed before. Unless you were on the front lines before trying to get these monuments removed legitimately, lawfully, unless you were supporting those people before, signing petitions, going and marching or petitioning courthouses or whatever to get them removed before, you have no right to be outraged about the methods that they are using now. That's how I see it. It's really easy to criticize what you see in the news without understanding the history that led up to where we are today. And again, it's all about historical context. I'm going to do my next video next Tuesday. It will be about Black Lives Matter. I will go deeper into the history of Black Lives Matter, the history of how we got to this point, this tipping point of where people are outraged and people are just, destructing public property, and Antifa and the Bungaloo or Boogaloo or whoever, the alt-right, and the history of violence in this country. So stay tuned on Tuesday for that. So I think those are the 3 questions that I got most this week. I hope that I gave you some more food for thought. I hope that, again, that this was thought-provoking, that this gave you just something more to think about, another angle to think about. Yes, other people own slaves. Doesn't negate what happened here. Yes, a few Black people own slaves. That doesn't negate the white supremacy. Just like the patriarchy. There are foot soldiers of the patriarchy. There are women who still insult me for not dyeing my hair. That is a foot soldier of the patriarchy. That doesn't mean that sexism and misogyny does not still exist. The very fact that women are insulting how I look, they've bought into the patriarchy. Just like the few Black slave owners of the pre-Civil War era who owned slaves bought into the white supremacy and the status symbol of owning slaves because they wanted to be powerful, I guess, right? So I hope that we can all open our minds to the bigger picture, the bigger story, take the history into context, take the whole picture into context when we think about these issues. And yeah, and as far as, taking down statues of George Washington and the other founding fathers who owned slaves, I think that, again, that's a big discussion that we as a country have to have, and maybe come to some kind of an understanding. Maybe that means every statue of a founding father has a caveat that they were slave owners. I don't know. That's a big answer. That's a big question that I don't have the answers for right now. So, and what was the last one? The last one was, yeah, I think the statues should be removed, but they should be done peacefully. Well, you know what? That was tried. But Black people aren't seen or heard in our culture. And so they didn't come down. And this is what happens when we don't listen. This is what happens. So, all right, I'm going to leave you with that. There will not be a video on Thursday, but my regular Sunday night fuzzy, no, what am I calling it? Fluffy video will be up, and then next week I will be on my regular schedule. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe below. Give me a thumbs up. Again, this is the Tuesday As I See It series. This is where I will kind of veer off the, you know, fluffy RV living. I mean, so here's another thing. Carolyn's RV Life. Carolyn's Life. And many of you know that. I'm not going to go down that road again. I'm speaking to the choir at this point. But this channel is about my life, my experiences, my philosophies. I mean, the whole part of this life for me was about dropping out of society as much as I have and saying no to the American dream. Isn't that political in of itself? And I said that in my very first video. I'm dropping out of society and saying no to the American dream. That is political. That is an activist move. So to be surprised that I'm an activist and that I'm political and that I'm historical and that I have a brain, it shouldn't come as a surprise. So I should go find my dog. Thank you all so much. I am honored. I am flattered. I am thrilled that I have so many beautiful thinking people in my audience, those who agree with me and those who don't agree with me. One more thing. About deleting comments. Anything that calls me a typical stupid liberal is going to get deleted. That's not constructive. Anything that promotes false information, conspiracy theories, is going to get deleted, and you're probably going to get banned. I am not going to allow my platform to be another vehicle for spreading fake news and false information and conspiracy theories. So a lot of you are posting Black Lives Matter are Marxists. Actually, I'm going to show you in the next video how that video was doctored. That is false. And if you post that, I'm going to delete it because it's fake. So yeah, I'm deleting that. And if you think that you have a right, if you think that me deleting false information, propaganda, conspiracy theories is anti-free speech, fine, you can believe that, but we have enough false information. If you want to post something that disagrees with anything I say, give me a legitimate source, not an alt-right conspiracy theory website or a YouTube video from someone who, you know, just like me. I'm nobody with a platform. I want sources. Cite legitimate sources if you want to disagree with me. And don't just say, I disagree with you, you're stupid. You'll get deleted and banned. Okay? My channel, my rules. YouTube gives me the tools to be able to make my community whatever I want it to be. And these are my rules. So again, thank you all so much for being here. I love my friendly audience, those who disagree with me and those who don't. I love the thinkers that are here. It means a lot to me, and I'm flattered and I'm honored. So I'll see you Sunday. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and until next time, be happy, be free, and be kind. I gotta go find my dog.